I'm glad Monday Night Football started out good for the Jets, kinda, because it ties in perfect with this story and will keep my football theme going. Last episode, I did a story on a guy named Joe Cap. The ending of this story will also have a guy named Joe in it. So like they do in football, as well as baseball, let's hit it. Today is September 15th. It was on this day, exactly 73 years ago, that Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Bubba Church threw a first pitch fastball to Pirates Ted Kluszewski, who drove it right back into Bubba's face. Bubba said he saw the ball come off the bat and thought he could catch it, but the ball hit him just below his left eye, spinning him in a circle and dropping him to his knees with his hands covering his face. He remembered hearing a story about a fan who was hit by a foul ball in the eye and it supposedly fell out into his hand. That's what Bubba thought happened to him. But he realized it was just a pool of blood in his hands. Bubba was carried off the field, Fireman style, into the clubhouse. They say Bubba kept asking, "Did we get him out?" The reply, "Sure we did, Bub." Bubba said, "You're lying to me. I know we didn't." He spent 8 days in the hospital and would need plastic surgery to repair his broken face. A day after his release, he was back on the mound, and this gutsy player, in the span of a few short years, would have quite a few encounters with some of the most famous people in all of sports history, and came out with a great story in each one of those encounters. I'm pretty sure there's other great stories about Emory Nicholas Church, nicknamed Bubba, pitcher, MLB Debut, 1950. Got his nickname because his older brother Frank was unable to say the word brother. It came out Brubba. Bubba was only 9 when his dad died, and to help out his mom, he would go to the farmer's market and sell popsicles that he would carry on his back in a homemade icebox. Later on, with World War II raging, like so many young men of the day, Bubba Church would drop out of high school, lie about his age, and enlist in the Army. I say young men, but really, they were just teenagers from small towns that they were tired of living in, and they already knew what their future was, because they could see it right in front of their eyes. As long as they can remember, you were either going to be working on a farm or miles deep in a coal mine, same as your dad and brothers and the generations before them. How depressing is your situation that you would rather join the Army and take a chance on getting killed just to escape your home life and risk your life to go fight in a war on the other side of the world, when really you had the choice to stay at home and be able to use the outhouse without having to worry about bullets buzzing by your melon. Bubba's military duty included 27 months in the Burma theater, where he played ball in the middle of the jungle that was cleared by the GIs. They called it the Tea Patch League. Bubba was the only one who could throw a curveball, so he was team pitcher. When the war was over, it sounds strange, but Bubba went back to high school, played baseball, and by the time school was finished that summer, he was pulling down $100 a week playing semi-pro ball with a couple of teams, one being the Stockholm Pipe Company. And pretty soon, big league teams were looking at him and making offers. Then Bubba received a scholarship offer from Mississippi State and wasn't sure what he should do. One of his managers gave him this advice: don't sign a contract until the season is over. So Bubba accepted the scholarship to State. And after his first semester, he took a trip to visit Ben Chapman, who was manager of the Phillies. And he asked Bubba when Bubba would be ready to play ball. Bubba said not for 3 years, and then realized that he'd be 26 when he finished college. So he signed with the Phillies in 1947 and headed down to Florida for spring training. Bubba was told to say he's 21 because 22 is a bit old for a rookie. He was married with 2 kids before his wife found out how old he really was. While down in Clearwater at an exhibition game against the New York Yankees, Babe Ruth was there. He was an old teammate of Ben Chapman, so Ben was nice enough to introduce Bubba to the Bambino as the starting pitcher for the day's game. Babe Ruth wished Bubba good luck. That's something you will never forget. Meeting a living legend, and he wishes you good luck. Great story for the grandkids. Bubba didn't know it yet, but he would have a few more stories to tell. Because Bubba was such a good hitter, the Phillies didn't know what to do with him. Manager Ben Chapman wanted him to play every day, but the GM liked his curveball and wanted him to pitch. The compromise? Send him down to Class C, where he could do both, with the Salina Blue Jays. First half of the season, he would play 3 games in the outfield and then pitch a game. He was 9-6, hitting .320. The Phillies decided to have Bubba concentrate on pitching for the second half of the season, which he did, going 12-3, ending up 21-9 for the season. He was promoted to AAA Toronto Maple Leafs in 1948, but Bubba didn't do well under manager Eddie Sawyer, so he went back to college. Was thinking about hanging up his cleats, but decided to give it another try, and with some good coaching made some improvements and pitched really good for the Maple Leafs in 1949, going 15-8 with the lowest ERA in the International League. And in 1950, Bubba was invited to spring training with the Phillies, and he would pitch the final 3 innings of the last exhibition game against the Boston Red Sox. It's at this game that Bubba acquired another great story to tell those grandkids. Bubba Church struck out Ted Williams for the last out of the game and then got to watch as Teddy Ballgame proceeded to throw his baseball bat 50 feet in the air. Bubba was in the starting rotation at the end of July for the Phillies, going 8-2 and extending the team's lead in August over the Dodgers, and was a contender for 1950 Rookie of the Year. Then, on May 25th, 1951, he would mark another career highlight when Bubba Church was picked to start against the New York Giants. Playing in that game was a hot new rookie who just came up from the Negro Leagues. This rookie was making his MLB debut and coming up to the plate for the very first time. This player would go on to be Rookie of the Year in 1951, but was still a couple seasons away from being selected to play in one of his 24 All-Star games. Bubba Church would welcome the rookie to the big show by striking him out, batter looking, and would retire this future Hall of Famer 3 more times on that day. That rookie was Willie Mays. And by doing that, Bubba gave himself another story to tell. As the 1951 season went on, he found his form and won 10 of 12, giving him a 12-5 record. During that streak, he had 4 shutouts, plus a streak of 28 scoreless innings pitched, and he was second in the rotation behind Robin Roberts. Bubba Church was a pitcher who could hit and got his first major league home run off Brooklyn Dodgers' Preacher Row when he walloped one in the Shibe Parks upper deck. It was on a cold morning in 1952 at training camp when Bubba hurt his arm and was traded to the Reds. He said he never felt comfortable with the Reds, felt like he was always being questioned. Like the time he gave up a homer on a curveball he threw. When he got back to the dugout, manager Luke Sewell asked why he threw that pitch. Bubba fired back, because I wanted him to hit a home run. After the 52 season, Bubba played winter ball in Venezuela where he added a slider to his pitching arsenal. Pitched great down there. But at the Reds' 1953 training camp, he came down with a sore shoulder and would end up having to come out of the bullpen. And with only a few crummy starts, he was traded to the Chicago Cubs. Bubba was glad to leave the Reds. Their new manager, Roger Hornsby, was well known for his dislike of pitchers and wouldn't even visit the mound. Instead, he would just sit in the dugout and wave his hand for the next pitcher. The 1954 season didn't start out well for Bubba, and the Cubs sold him to the LA Angels of the Pacific Coast League. And with Angels, he was either really good or not. He was good enough that the Cubs invited him to their 1955 spring training camp, where he would pitch a few games before being sent back down to the Angels with his sore arm, which at this point in his career was a reoccurring theme. And at 30 years old, Bubba Church was done in the bigs. He didn't pitch too bad with the Angels, and manager Bob Sheffing would actually use him as a pinch hitter. After the season, Bubba retired and got a steady job. But like so many others, Bubba was not ready to give up the baseball life. So he called up Phillies owner Bob Carpenter and asked for his old job back, and he actually got it. Was signed and sent to their affiliate, the Miami Marlins of the International League. It was there that Bubba would add another story to his collection of stories he could tell about the time he shared pitching duties with a 50-year-old former Negro Leaguer named Satchel Paige. Bubba played winter ball in Venezuela after the 1957 season, just like he had done for the past 5 winters, and set a record down there by striking out 16 batters in a row. And when he came back to Miami, he was named pitching coach for the Marlins and would still do a little pitching himself. He said he really enjoyed his time down there with that Miami team. And at the home games, his wife would bring their dog, and the pooch would sit in the dugout with the team. And whenever the national anthem was played, the dog would howl non-stop until it was over. Ongoing joke around the park was, whenever it was time for the anthem, folks would say, "Time for Bubba's dog to howl." So after retiring for the second time, this time for good, Bubba would open up a very successful linen business back home in Alabama, where he would meet and become good friends with Alabama football coach Bear Bryant, who was a few years away from winning his first national title and not yet a legend. Head coach Bear Bryant had a big problem. His number 1 recruit, a freshman quarterback, was considering quitting football to sign a baseball contract with one of the MLB teams. So Coach Bryant asked Bubba to talk to the young man and give him some advice. So Bubba did. And he told the ball player how a sore arm can change the direction of your career, and that he was better off staying in school so he'd have an education to fall back on. Story goes, Bubba Church pulled out his wallet, took out some money, and gave it to the teenager, telling him to fly back to Beaver Falls and think about if he should play baseball or stay in college. Whether it was the pull of the Crimson Tide or just a wise decision, Joe Namath went back to Bama to play football, and the rest is history.